based on new topic, or just to revise these 3 topics. So good morning, everyone. Shall we start? Let me share the screen. And we have read this essay yesterday. We have gone through the essay. We read it yesterday, and now we are just talking about some information, some analysis and interpretation about it. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Kshitij, Utsaha, Mohit, Anusa. Anusa was the first to join the class today. Anusa, am I audible to you? Anusa. Okay, fine, good. So let me share it, and here we go. Is the screen visible? Okay, fine. The myth of Sisyphus, as we discussed, just read and somehow discussed on it yesterday. And mainly we'll talk about the interpretation, some analysis, like in absurd reasoning, absurdity and suicide. These 2 things. First, we before we enter into the topic, let's be clear about these two beforehand themes, or let's say topics or subtopics under the essay. Absurd is meaningless. Something absurd means something meaningless, and this is the direct. This has the direct consequence, or is the direct consequence of the absence of God. If we just connect this with Sisyphus' story, or with the Sisyphus as the main character, we can see absurdity in his life. Actually, what happens in absurdity is there is direct consequence of absence of God. Bhagwan no bhaye jasto. So, without God, the discrepancy means the dissimilarity or lack of similarity, lack of compatibility between human and human aspirations or human hopes and the world is acute. That is acutely seen in the myth of Sisyphus. This absurdity is seen in the in this Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus. How we see there lacks some compatibility between the character as the main character, hero of this this story or this essay, Sisyphus, and there is also that discrepancy, that illogical or surprising lack of compatibility between God and the man, or man's aspirations, man's hopes, man's let's say some dreams, and the world itself is the God that just protected, guided, and taken care by the God. So there we can see the lack of this similarity. That's absurdity. That's lack of meaning, or meaningless sense is absurdity here. The first thing. The second thing is the myth of Sisyphus, as Camus elucidates or describes this concept of the absurd here in the story, or in this myth of Sisyphus as well. The same concept has been elucidated by Camus as well. Albert Camus describes this absurdity there in the story, or there in the essay. This is philosophical essay, and the absurd comes with the realization that the world is not rational. If the world would be rational, then would not have been the condition, that pathetic condition, that meaningless life of the people, or of that. So at this point of his effort, man stands face to face with his irrational. He has no logic at all. It does not have any logic at all. That's why man remains illogical. Man remains irrational. There is no rational judgment, rational that his efforts and his expectations. He feels within him his longing. He has the desire for happiness and for reason. The hero of this story, Sisyphus, also longs for the same happiness. but there is absurdity, and the absurdity is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. So nobody is there, God is not there to take care of him. So Camus, this explanation shows that um, God is even not the creator of your to create of your fate. Just you have the choice. You are there uh, to shape your choices, shape your desires, shape your fate. This is all there. So uh, like no faith on God. Here we can see from this generalization. So from this concept, what we can come to know is this absurdity has been realized, and even his longings, even his aspirations, even his happiness for life, there remains absurdity in man's life. So how can he confront that? What should he do that? So we go further. There is reasoning that works, and there Albert Camus gives three reasoning, mainly whether to revolt it, whether just take it as a freedom, or whether there is the passion or enthusiastic imbalance of meaninglessness of life, or and rejection of society. No society, no lose, nothing to lose, anything any related to the life. That's why he talks about this absurd reasoning here as well. In first section, Camus sets out the fundamental purpose of his essay. That is, the fundamental purpose of the essay is he describes his concept of the absurd or absurdity, meaningless. And also, not only the concept of absurd is given that we described earlier, God is even irrational, the world is itself is irrational, but also the essayist talks about or articulates the consequences of one's encounter with the absurd. So how does a person encounter with that absurdity that he encounters? Am I audible? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just simplifying this again. The essayist Albert Camus takes two things as the fundamental purpose of his essay. The first one is concept of absurdity, concept of meaninglessness, futility, and the second thing he talks about art. He also articulates the consequences of how a person, how a human being encounters with that absurdity. What does he actually do to live his life? This is second. What does Sisyphus do, and what goes all in what sense? We have to consider these two things. This purpose is to determine whether or not life is worth living after one becomes aware of aware of its fundamental absurdity, its futility, its meaningless. Then should we uh, lead, should we love or follow to suicide, or should we encounter it, or should we be satisfied with our life? There are two things, and this purpose are just articulation of consequences that determines whether or not life is worth living. This is important question. Life is worth living after we become aware of our struggle, aware of our sufferings. Human life is this poor life. This has all absurdity, all meaningless, no meaning of this. Let's say, uh, if you just generalize this property, or more no meaningless, no meaning of this physical beauty or everything or so on. If that is full of sufferings, full of hurdles, full of difficulties, uh, is it worth to live that life, or is it not worth to live that life? After we become aware of this uh, fundamental absurdity, fundamental meaninglessness, then what Camus believes is, or what he defines is, absurd is the condition in which world evades, world just gets let's say victory on it. World evades us and becomes itself again. World has its own nature. God has its own nature. World has, as it has its own nature of behaving, of treating, or just casting itself rather than something that belongs to us or any higher power. Like any higher power means that may be the sort of reasoning, or that may be some sorts of awareness. So he describes the moment. Here he describes that moment which the Sisyphus, the main character, recognizes that this is an encounter with the absurd. His life is no more of that meaning, sub, of that meaningfulness, just all futility, just all uh, routinized job, repetitive task, no, let's say, succession at all. So, because there is no remedy for this awareness, even if you are aware of this, you do not have any remedy at all. That's why assist proposes his purpose is, or he proposes a revolt or constant confrontation. No, you said no, you have to revolt, you have to rage against it. You must have constant regular or continuous confrontation. The first one, after you become aware, whatever the essayist suggests us here, with this absurdity. The second thing, he also suggests that freedom is available in the absurd. There is freedom in the absurd. Whatever the toil you are busy in or you are doing, there is freedom. Uh, any Since any scale of values is tied to a belief in the meaning of life, so one is no longer bound to these values. You should not be oriented to those values, rather you are freed. Just take it as normal, means there is freedom of choice or freedom as well available, that in absurdity, in difficulty as well. First, revolt or constant confrontation. Second, his sister's suggestion is just freedom is available in absurdity as well. There may be some values, beliefs, but you are no longer, or one is no longer bound to uh, orient to those or attach to those values. Like Sisyphus was the case. He could not revolt. He did not do that. Freedom. And the third consequence of the absurdity or higher reasoning is, as Camus says, is passion. So the enthusiastic imbalance of this passion is the enthusiastic imbalance. You have to adopt it. You have to adopt that meaningless life. If life is meaningless, then adopt it. Just have passion on it. Patience is also very important. Enthusiastic imbalance. And this enthusiastic imbalance, if this awareness you have raised, it gives us you one higher level of thought, higher level of reasoning. That means you do not lose your life, you uh, do not follow the suicide, do not lose your life, rather you get the victory. And whatever Sisyphus gets victory, and he becomes the hero. That's why life itself, if we know life itself is meaningless, we reject suicide as well. We do not lose life. So some of you may raise the question, like, if life is meaningless, if life is futile, if there is no meaning of this labor, and why to study, why to do this and that, that may be the question. But there is still, we may have uh, the generalization or explanation that if you get this awareness, then you enjoy the things you do. Second, what can you see on the screen? Yeah, read out the characters. Just I won't go through. So just read out who these characters are in the story or in the essay. The first, or the main, or the hero, the protagonist, whatever you say, is the Sisyphus. According to who Sisyphus was, there are different opinions. Why was he, uh, uh, just to say, why has he to do that repetitive task, or why was he punished? There are different opinions. As Sisyphus is the wisest and most prudent mortals, Sisyphus, a king, once he was thought a king as well. is the main character of the myth. It is myth. Remember, this is not fact. This is myth. यो त एउटा myth मात्र हो, अलौकिक भनाइ हो, एउटा fact based होइन. This is not that scientific reality based. This is all myth. And based on the Sisyphus of Homer, whatever Homer has just described Sisyphus as the king, as the main character of the myth as well. So he is sentenced. He was chained, and the sentence, the punishment was to push a rock to the top of a mountain, only for it to roll back down to the base for eternity, forever, forever, forever. That was what he was sentenced. This Sisyphus is different from the original Sisyphus in that Albert Camus stated that it is important to believe that he is happy with his sentence. So we just said passion, yes, imbalance of that meaningless life. So this Sisyphus taught us this lesson as well. Be happy with your life, be happy with your punishment, be happy with your struggle, be happy with your sufferings. So if he is happy, his fate is no longer punishment. If you are happy, you are satisfied, self-satisfied, then you don't think that your fate is punished or your fate is that much in the case of failure. You are no more punished if you are happy. So this is what we can see. Second character, Pluto. So he sent the god of war to release death from Sisyphus. As Sisyphus was chained, yes, he was in the underworld. Pluto gives him permission to go back to the earth to see his wife, and he was chained. There is one saying, he was chained and he wanted to meet his wife. Then in that case, Pluto just gave him permission. Is another character, Pluto, the king in the underworld. And however, Sisyphus does not want to return as promised. Earlier, he promised he would return after he met his wife, but he did not do so. He lived on the earth after he saw the earth, felt this, and human beings and so on. So, and from this mythical character, we know that there is the relation between man and love and man as well. So his love to the mankind or his love to the humans. This disobedience gains the king his eternal punishment of pushing a rock up to a mountain only to have it fall back down. That's why he did not do whatever he just say he vowed or he promised. That's why he was given that punishment. This is what according to the sense, what according to the context. Next one is the gods. Sisyphus has stolen the secrets of the gods. It is also said in the story, or there is also the myth, Sisyphus stole some secrets of gods. Then he knew that Jupiter took Aegina. The Jupiter and these were the gods in Egyptian mythology. Then Jupiter took Aegina, the daughter of Aesopus, and Sisyphus blackmails Sisyphus. Sisyphus just blackmailed with the king. He declared that he will only say where his daughter has gone if he gives water to the citadel. If the gods, they provide the water to those areas, those fortified areas in the city or in the town, in earlier Greek areas, Greek or in Greek territories or Greek towns, they had fortified areas, and if God provided them the water, then on that condition, Sisyphus blackmailed the god Aesopus, and his daughter was just out of contact. And in that, Sisyphus later captures death. He just blackmailed and he got this death penalty, who was then released by Pluto. In that case, Pluto there was to provide him the permission to go back to the land or earth and meet his wife. So in this way, these are the characters important in the story. There are some glossary. I won't go this all through. You will get and read out this yourself. Just for your comfort, I've just collected this from different sources. So abduction, kidnap, like chastise, telling somebody off, and so on, like this. What can you see in the picture?
Carrying a rock.
Who can be this man?
Sisyphus.
He is the same person we are talking time and often. Look at his burden. Look at his physicality. Look at his strength. And with struggle, how has he become? Is the struggle itself. He has become as bold as strong as the stone itself. This repetitive, not once, repetitive task. Just you can imagine. The myth of Sisyphus. It was written in 1942. It is a philosophical essay and on suicide and absurd, as we discussed earlier, whether to live the life with suicide or whether to just take awareness of this absurdity. Among the best known works by Camus, works of Camus, Albert Camus. So this ancient god, the ancient gods of myth, they found a uniquely horrific punishment. This is horrific punishment for Sisyphus. So just pushing an enormous and heavy rock to the top of the mountain, only to have it fall back down, back to its starting point. Thanks to the forces of gravity upon that weight, the punishment was considered severe, quite severe punishment. It was all futile. There was no any productivity after doing this futile job. So this futile labor, it is forever, for eternity. This was what he had to do. Just talking about the suicide and the myth of Sisyphus. As we said, the myth of Sisyphus is a philosophical essay on suicide and absurd, is among the best well-known works of Camus. So what happens when people lose hope? They just generalize, they have this meaningless life, they have difficulties, hurdles, sufferings. What happens then if you lose that hope? Suicide is the tragic answer for some. Some may cause suicide or just love suicide. But however, Albert Camus argues in the myth of Sisyphus that a loss of hope need not to be cause for suicide. If you lose that hope, there are other options. So no need to be a cause for that suicide. If one loses the hope of life, of worthiness of life, or meaninglessness of life, no need to lead to the suicide. On the contrary, Camus suggests us that the recognition that there is no hope for anything beyond certain death. He has this recognition, and this is what we call higher level, higher order of reasoning. What he calls the realization of the absurd. We have, if you have realized, those who get suicide are those who do not or who cannot realize that absurdity actual actually offers the possibility of happier existence. In absurdity, we must have some happiness as well. Without shadow, what quotation we did yesterday? We read yesterday. Without shadow, sorry, without sun, there is no
Shadow.
shadow. Yes, shadow. Yes, that means without difficulty, without sufferings, there is no happiness. In that absurdity as well, we have to realize the happiness. This is what Camus suggests in the story, in the essay. The gods had condemned Sisyphus, as we already discussed, to ceaselessly, continuously routinize the job, the same job that again falls back on its own weight. There is the reason, scientific reason of losing, of just falling that stone on the top of the mountain. They had through it with some reason that there is no more dreadful punishment than futile and hopeless labor. This is one of the punishment. He has to do this not once, time and again, ceaselessly, and this is what Sisyphus was condemned or sentenced by the god. Opinions differ. They differ regarding the reason. Some of one of you, perhaps Mr. Subedi, asked Subedi or Mr. Bhatta asked us, sir, what is the reason that he was sentenced or he was just punished? Their opinions, we can see different reasons there. Just why he became so involved in futile labor of the underworld. So if you read the say in paragraph number 2, then you find different opinions. Some are these: if one believes Homer, Sisyphus was the wisest and most prudent and of mortals. Heroism, or he is the heroic character. Another just tradition believes he was disposed to practice the profession of highwayman. In highwayman, that he has to lure the people. Just he was punished for that. This is another tradition. This is another myth. एउटा डकैतीको एउटा चोरको काम गर्थ्यो, त्यसैले उसलाई यो प्र्याक्टिस गर्न लगाइएको थियो, यसैको बदलामा उसलाई त्यो पनिसमेन्ट दिइयो. This is another tradition. This is mythology. But Camus believes that he is accused of certain levity in regard to the gods. He stole their secrets, as we discussed earlier. So from this to this celestial thunderbolts, he preferred to the benediction of water, and he was punished for this in the underworld. This is one reason. That is another reason. But Homer, according to Homer, the ancient poet, he just believed that Sisyphus as a particularly intelligent mortal. Homer tells us also that Sisyphus had put death in chains, he had been put in death in chains, and later Pluto just views that he was given that permission to meet his wife. Another tradition portrays him as a common thief lying in wait for passerby in the highways. So these are the traditions who actually Sisyphus was. Different interpretations. The particular choice of the gods for that punishment, that makes Sisyphus an absurd hero for Camus. But Camus believes that he is the hero after he was given that sentence by the gods. It was the peculiar choice of the gods. It was whatever he has to do or whatever he was supposed to do. That punishment made Sisyphus absurd hero. What Camus believes. It is also said that Sisyphus, being near to death, rashly wanted to test his wife's love. He ordered her to cast his unburied body into the middle of the public square. Some they believe just to show his unburied body and to test his wife's love as well. Sisyphus uh, woke up in the underworld, and there, annoyed by an obedience so contrary to human love, he obtained from Pluto permission to return to the earth in order to chastise his wife. But when he had seen again the face of this world, he enjoyed water, he enjoyed the sun, he enjoyed warm stones and the sea, and he no longer wanted to go back to the in that internal darkness underground or underworld. So he stayed here. That character, just how has it been he been displayed? Can you write yes? How many of you are listening and there? I will just watch that later. Just write yes. Just activate, involve yourself. Okay. I'll just check all whether you are there, and based on the same, I will take the attendance as well. Recalls signs of anger. Warnings were of no avail, no meaningful. Many years more, he lived facing the curve of the Gulf, the sparkling sea, and the smiles of the earth. He enjoyed the earth there on the earth. He enjoyed a decree of the gods, a choice of the god. was necessary. On the earth, we believe on the God. In this our life on the earth, there is the decree of the God that is necessary. But when there is, as we discussed in the first slide, where there is the absence of God's necessity or God's, uh, from the perspective of the God's choice, everything is absurd. Mercury came and seized the impudent man by the collar and snatching him from his joys, led him forcibly back to the underworld. But Mercury, another character, just it came and it seized that character of Sisyphus, and it led him forcibly back to the underworld, where his rock was ready for him, and that rock was just a sentence, punishment. In that way, he did not obey the god Pluto, and later on Mercury was sent. He seized this impudent man. Impudent man means strong man. He was not fearless, and he just caught on the collar by the collar and snatched him from his joys, his life on the earth. Then forcibly he led back to the underworld. What is the condition of Sisyphus as a representation, or the condition of Sisyphus as a representation to us as well, to everyone? Can Ekikrit, can you read out this? Just reading.
The labor of Sisyphus is compared to the daily work of the bulk of the masses of population in the modern world. Billions of workers head to a job every single day that presents no less than an absurd hope of accomplishment than rolling a rock to the top of a hill. And just as Sisyphus is condemned to never make progress, so are the billions of workers who must get up the very next day and do the exact same thing, day after day after day. The purpose of the punishment lies within that moment of lucid awareness of the eternity of futility that he faces. That very lucidity is also the moment when he finally beats the gods. Camus stretches the point by narrowing the comparison of Sisyphus from the mass modern men to Oedipus, another tragic figure from ancient myth. The connection can only be acquired through restless experience that brings wisdom. Only with that wisdom gained from the experience can one become heroic in the face of the absurd. The absurd is also the location of happiness. The happiness is that is discovered in the realm of the absurd is the emotional key that unlocks the gates to fate. When the seemingly absurd can be transformed into that which provides happiness, uh, is when fate is stolen from the gods and returned to the mortals.
Yes, thank you. So here, this representation to other humans as well as from the heroic character, this is just allegory. We can just represent him as the heroic deeds, and it happens to most of the millions and billions of the people just who have their futility, working, doing same repetitive job, and if they think so, in that through their restless experience, through their tragedies, there is wisdom. This wisdom brings there, and after all, ultimately there is one quotation: all is well, all is well, all is well. So that is the wisdom. And this wisdom also gained from that experience, bitter experience, and that become heroic in the face of the absurdity. So this happens, the happiness that we discover from our bitter restless experience in the realm of absurd is the emotional key that unlocks the gates to fate. Our fate is determined by self. We are the creator of our fate from that restless experience. This is what we get from the this representation or this allegory. When the seemingly absurd can be transformed into that which provides happiness, when fate is stolen from the gods and returned to the mortals. If fate is stolen from the gods, then we are there to again to to wish to get this wisdom and create our own fate. So no need to worry about this. Uh, in that brief moment, as we have seen, between the rock being where he pushed it, and then again rock rolling back to where he started, is where Sisyphus finds joy in his toil. He has got the satisfaction in his toil, in his labor, and this joy results in regaining control over his own fate. When Sisyphus turns back to head down the cliff to where the rock now sits waiting to be pushed again, माथिबाट ढुङ्गा जुन खसेर त्यो ठुलो चट्टान खसेर तल जहाँ पुग्छ, he is just standing there. And in that case, Camus finds him in contemplation, self-satisfied of all the various events of his life, which together have made of his fate and placed him where he is. So he is just contemplated with that tragedy, that difficulty. He is not against, not revolt. His decisions were his own, and thus his destiny has always been of his own making. Great lesson. What a great lesson. At last, Sisyphus has demonstrated the disobedience of the thief who thumbs his nose at gods, and the god can do nothing about it. That means there is the absence of God. Then there is the main character, that Sisyphus, one who has to take care of or to construct his own fate. When Sisyphus reaches his place back down at the top of the mountain again, Camus sees not a man filled with the dread of repeating the inevitably futile labor. He is not dreaded. He is not afraid of doing that again. He just takes it. He has the patience that serves as punishment. Though that futile labor, he has not. He has understood. This is, to me, this is a punishment. He is not worried about it. Camus is a man who is happy because his punishment has led to his discovery. There is punishment, and this punishment has taught him to find out discovery, or his discovery, that it is the struggle itself which has led to his contentment, satisfaction. And this is important. The struggle itself is there, which has led, or which leads us to our contentment, and that is certainly no punishment at all. If we realize, some people just, if they say some problems occur, they say they just blame it. They just exaggerate that blame, and then the punishment gets severe. But if you satisfy it, if you have the contentment on this struggle, then you enjoy it. So no punishment at all. This is what we get from the story. Regarding the themes, we have two sections. In the first, in examining this myth, Camus found a parallel for man's condition. As we said, billions of workers have been doing that way in a world without meaning. So you just imagine the world around you, just looking at the sufferings of the people. If they just revolt against or they they are worried about those struggles, will there be something meaningful then? Never, of course not. So same parallel means allegory, representation regarding man's condition in the world without meaning. A world whose values were self-created, or at least community created. What you are supposed to do. Yeah, in doing something, there are struggles. A world in which many people do things as repetitive, they become fail, they are failure, again they have to repeat the same. And as meaningless as what Sisyphus must do. like sorry, like you have seen so many people, their struggles, their failures, again they have not quitted that. They enjoy it, and they find of higher level of reasoning there in absurdity. So the main message, the main theme is try to find absurdity in the poem. Am I got disconnected? Hello. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I fa- I faced some problem. Let me see. If I okay. It is Camus insight. Camus insight. People say Camus, as we are for our ease. We can say Camus, Albert Camus, or Albert Camus. It is Camus' insight into the awareness of Sisyphus, as Sisyphus was aware during that process of doing that repetitive task. His insight into the fact that Sisyphus knows what he is doing. He knows what is he doing. He knows his struggle, and this gives Camus a courage, or this gives Sisyphus the courage. He has not been away, not quitted that. Rather, he has got courage. Like Sisyphus, Camus tells us humans make their own fate, their own choice, and to that extent, to that level, are in control of their own destinies. We are the creator of our own destinies. Uh, like Alva Edison got success after how many failures? What did Alva Edison do? What did he
He
invent?
created a bulb.
Bulb.
He
Okay.
converted electricity into light.
After hundreds of good. After years and times of 100 times of failure, then he got his destiny. Means he created his own fate. What Camus tells us, humans have to make their own fate. By defying the gods, Sisyphus made his choice and his fate. Other themes like man's pursuit of knowledge. Uh, this narrative begins conflict between protagonist and the god. There is conflict between god and man, hero, who are displeased because of the protagonist. Sisyphus steals their secrets, then he was punished. Then so they seek him, they seek to punish him, and the conflict arises. This is interesting conflict between them. Camus believes that life is inherently meaningless and absurd. This is important lesson. After all, what is there in the life? Meaninglessness, absurdity. But in that absurdity, that futility, we have to understand the knowledge, and this knowledge is important. I asked you earlier why to study and why to do this all. If we understand this, we have this understanding of knowledge as futility as well. But in fact, Camus argues that in this essay, that knowledge is integral to man's noble resistance of his own futility and mortality. Then he gets a higher level of reasoning. Knowledge then becomes a type of bravery, and this bravery helps us to resist that struggle. From that acknowledging their own fate, the absurd hero is aware and active in resisting the consequences of the truth. And it is essential in the sense that this knowledge of the truth of his own existence that allows him to be hero. Ultimately, the knowledge that he gets creates his fate. It is important for our existence that makes us hero. The second theme is the futility of human existence. As we have discussed earlier, Camus' main thesis is an answer to the futility of life. Life is nothing, life is meaningless. But secondarily, Camus also believes that, look at this last sentence, he has embedded argument against those who use religious faith. God creates and God saves us, all this. That is not objective knowledge, that is religious faith. So instead of objective knowledge, his argument, Sisyphus' argument is there, as you can see. Camus shows why that isn't true. Life is still rich in experience, so though it lacks inherent meaning. That's why there is futility of existence, but he goes against that futility if that is futile, that is meaningless, you have already grasped. He begins with this statement, you have already grasped that Sisyphus is the absurd hero. He is much through his passions as through his torture. He tells us he has got torture and he has got the passions as well. He tells us in that comment that he believes heroism to include desire and futility. This is what we can see in the beginning of the essay. The third one is man and love. So Camus' comments about romance are brief but insightful. His comments are romance, all is well, no shade without sun, and so on. He shows a portion of the myth this way. What he says is, it is said that Sisyphus, being near to death, rashly wanted to test his wife's love. So man, and then he enjoyed on the earth. So he saw other humans, and he enjoyed this. So his love, man and love. So how is that attached? Is also the theme of this essay. Two sample questions. This I have taken from different sources. Just you can read this yourself. The questions like, why was Sisyphus sentenced to pushing a rock up a mountain for eternity, only for it to fall back down again? त्यही punishment किन दियो त? त्यही repetitive. So this is one question. How does the philosophical theory of existentialism that Camus believed in change the fate of Sisyphus? So for existence, what you need to do, and how has that philosophical theory applied in this case. And finally, Camus' Rhetorics. As we have already discussed, allegory and aphorisms or quotations, pithy statement that gives us wisdom, and allegory just a representation through Camus or through Sisyphus of billions and billions of other people. So there is no sun without shadow, all is well. These are the pithy statements and aphorisms. So what do? Is they seem to make the entire tone of the passage seem wise and thoughtful. They have given us these wise and thoughtful ideas through his rhetoric, through his way of writing. This is the style of writing. So some two tasks for writing, like practice discussion questions from the book that you have got already in the slide as PDF as well. The second one is some writing assignments. So consult the text and do any 4 writing assignments and submit them whenever you complete them. So this is all about this. Now, thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening and participating. If you have any questions within 2 minutes.
Sir, 4 from each essay?
4 from this only. There are 6 questions. You can choose any 4 that you consider important. So only do that much.
And from the previous essays?
Previous, at least do 1 question, just interpretation question that you are supposed to ask in your examination, board examination, internal examination, unit test as well.
Yes. Okay, sir. Sir, I had 1 question from the previous one.
Yeah.
As Marx was a Jew in Germany, he probably faced some discrimination, some class difference. What do you think? Did this lead him to become a communist? How much did this impact on his thoughts?
Of course, great question. This is we need a lot of time, but shortly I say his context, his socio-political context, wherever he grew and born and brought up, that impacted in his ideas, his ideology. Which society you just get up, what are the people surrounding, their behaviors, their lifestyles, their practices. He became all that communist, and his ideology was saved because of his surroundings, because there was that concept, that discrimination, that system of the governance, that system of the society, and that saved him to be communist, and further he just practiced the same ideology or communism.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we'll have discussion on Friday. If you have any questions, please do prepare for yourself. Next essay, that Charles Darwin's, the E = mc square. So read that essay. We'll discuss on this. One thing. The second thing is we may have some unit test practice as well. So also prepare for these 3 chapters. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. This much for today. I just stop sharing, and this for now we can leave. The attendance has already been recorded there. Thank you.